Good morning, lunatics. Welcome to Morning Java. Morning Java brought to you, as always, Chris Carter, by our very good friends at the Get Go Cafe and Market, where, I don't know if everybody knows this, but you can literally take your phone that you might be watching this on right now, open the Get Go app, and order some food that will be ready literally when you get into there, just sitting on a shelf.
And roll.
Man, it's so good.
So you can get food on the go at Get Go? That's amazing.
I think that's the idea. A really somber start, obviously, to this Morning Java. It's the first time we've had a chance to talk about it. Steelers wide receivers coach Daryl Drake passed away 2 days ago now. Obviously, just really terrible news and really kind of awful reactions, but heartwarming reactions from the team and the surrounding community. Yeah,
Coach Drake was a guy. He'd only been with the Steelers for a few years, but he impacted everyone. Darius Hayward-Bay only had 1 year with this guy, but he was the one sharing the videos with how Coach Drake would start off, coaching sessions and how he impacted people. Mark Barron literally just got here this season, and he said, I didn't even work with this guy, but I know how great of a man he was. And everyone acknowledges he was a very good coach, but an even better man. And it's a huge hit to the Steelers family right now, because everyone knows that the Steelers are sort of a family environment in a lot of ways, but Daryl Drake is one of those guys that helped people, especially young players looking to make a name for themselves and make a roster spot or at least the practice squad. He was someone that he connected with all those people.
Well, you mentioned Darius Hayward-Bay, and his reaction was one of the ones that really stuck out to me, because he put out the really heartfelt, heartwarming tweet just about what he meant to him and that he'd be missed. But then he followed it up with the video, and the video, he's sneaking it during the wide receivers session there early in the morning in the meeting. And when you see, it just kind of reminds me of like when you normally sneak video of people doing kind of like off color or funny things, but this was like him sneaking video that he wanted to remember for himself about just like the kind of person he was. It's just it's a really sad situation.
It's very sad. It's going to hit the Steelers deeply. They took 2 days off of practice, and it's really kind of hit the community. It's going to be very, very tough for them to get back. They'll be back in the pads this morning, actually, talking about this. I'm sure they're going to get asked a lot of questions. Big blow for them to overcome. It's going to be really rough for anyone to come into that job after this and help with a very young wide receiver group that was already so attached to this guy.
And if you want to see a little bit more about just the reaction and what Dale Lawley had to say and what some of the NFL community had to say, those are kind of evergreen, everlasting pieces that are on the site. So take a look if you haven't already. Chris, you mentioned just the youth and inexperience really at the receiver level, and I think you can even include Juju Smith-Schuster in that category. Really, the only guy with some NFL tenure is Dante Moncrief. What does this group have to do now to keep moving forward? Especially Juju, where he has to keep building, and now he's without a guy that he was obviously pretty responsive to.
Well, a lot of things that make the leap for a lot of players is improving your technical skills, being able to win in different ways. And I wrote about that for James Washington this week already, talking about how last year he was basically just trying to go up and get the ball. He wasn't starting his route strong. Now that release off the line of scrimmage is much smoother. There's sharper steps. He's each step has a purpose, and he's going somewhere, and it's forcing cornerbacks to honor, okay, is he going this way, that way? Now I have to think about all these different levels of threats, and that makes it so that when I actually, if I'm James Washington, when I run my post or my out route, you're not just jumping all over it because I've disguised it well. Those are the things that these young receivers have to learn, and that Coach Drake was really helpful in them improving to that level.
The one thing that really stood out when looking at your classroom was just kind of like how the players feed off of each other, and it reminded me of kind of when AB was in the battle with Artie Burns for a couple of camps, and we were looking at that like, man, Artie Burns is going to turn into this really good corner because he's facing AB every time they go out there. Things went differently for both players, but now we're looking at the same situation with like Joe Hayden working with some of these young guys. So, there's going to be a transition at coach. But they do have some leadership on the defense, which is weird to think that's going to help those guys, Yeah,
it's really going to help. James Washington said to me after the game against the Buccaneers, I asked him, your release is much sharper. How much have you worked on that? He's like, honestly, I've been working on it, but what helped me the most was going against Joe Hayden and Steven Nelson, because their footwork is elite, and having to beat those guys has made me change my game and step it up a notch. That's a big step. So, veteran leadership around the team is important, but I also think they have some high character guys at that wide receiver position. I've been saying since they drafted him, James Washington will be a favorite in this town very soon. Juju already there.
All right, Chris, we're going to make this all about the receivers.
All right.
In a group chat with my fantasy football guys earlier today, we're talking about Dak Prescott looking for an extension. He's reportedly turning down maybe $30 million.
I don't know what he's doing.
Seeking maybe $40 million.
That's a lot.
And one of our friends who's a Cowboys fan is like, the joke is actually Ben Roethlisberger extending for 2 years. So then everybody starts fighting, right? Start talking about receiving cores and fantasy impact and which quarterback can have the bigger year. So what this group of receivers, and I know that you liked Deontay Johnson before he got hurt, collectively, what can they do? And even throw in some of that fantasy a little bit. Like who's gonna stand out?
So here's the thing: is that they've really balanced out this receiver crew with you got Juju at the top. He's starting to really step into that role. You saw him do it a little bit last year, winning in some tough combat catch moments, beating Jalen Ramsey and AJ Bouye in that Jaguars game a couple times.
And not just beating them; those combat catch ratings were insane. Vance had one better, but I mean he's going up.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of impressive things there. I think he's ready to step into the number one role. And the question of whether or not he's not about replacing Antonio Brown. It's about being a threat at the number one position. Moncrief, he's a guy that coming in, he's the speedster, but he has the hands and he's working on his game. I think he's a huge key to being able to take the attention away from Washington and Johnson when they get on the field. Juju's still going to attract that attention. People are still going to be like, hey, you got to stop him. But Moncrief is a good balance for this group. And Deontay Johnson, just the footwork that he shows in camp, if he can translate that to the game, that's going to be special, because what James Washington wasn't doing last year was the footwork. And that's what Deontay Johnson has on his side right now. There's a lot of good things going for this group, and I think that's going to help Ben Roethlisberger, especially in the efficiency numbers. Now, fantasy-wise, still a little questions about Ben Roethlisberger because he's always been an iffy fantasy quarterback.
The thing that's going to help him, he's always got the yards, right? The yards will be there. The thing that's going to help him, I think, is Vance McDonald, obviously.
In the red zone.
He's going to be a big target. They don't, as Dale's written about a lot, they don't have a ton of depth at tight end. It's actually pretty shallow. But Vance is there, and then you've got the running backs. 3 guys that can kind of use their hands coming out of the backfield too. So
having a lot of different receiving threats is a big part of Randy Fichtner's offense. That's what's going to make this Steelers offense go. If Ben Roethlisberger learns how to work that chemistry and spread the ball around, he's in for a big year, and that will make him a top fantasy quarterback.